a very lucky person because I have great friends in my life and really smart ladies. And Jenny Galluzzo, we've known each other since 1999 when you were a freshman in college and I was a sophomore. And it's been fun watching each other grow up, I would say, for our entire adult lives. And Jenny is the co-founder and chief branding, community, and communications officer.
Okay, sure.
Okay. Of the Second Shift. This is going to be a fun podcast. And so I don't have to do it. Just start by telling us, what is the Second Shift? Why did you start it? And what's been its life so far?
I would just like to first say that I love you.
Yeah,
you're adorable. Also, I would like to say, I think this is so funny because I flew in from New York this morning. Yeah. And usually my first stop, I always LAX to your house. It's it's a good route. And we have lunch and we hang out. And we usually go to the Country Mark and shop. But now we've morphed into the phase where our hangout is doing a podcast instead of going to shop. I feel like we're so grown up.
We're so grown up. Because I thought about it. I was like, Jason, I only have a few hours with you. And I was like, normally we'd literally have lunch and then just go shopping. And I was like,
wander around.
I feel like we could be much more productive with our time and still chat.
I feel really I feel like we're adult. Really grown up.
Yeah.
I'm almost 50. New phase.
I'm a solid year older than you. So I'm latter half of my 40s. So it was bound to happen at some time.
This is the new version of just chilling. So Amy, how was lunch?
It was good. Okay.
Okay. So
tell me what the Second Shift is.
The Second Shift is a platform that provides jobs, community, and career development for women in their mid-career. So our membership is 35 to 45-year-olds, primarily women they're not women who have taken a huge amount of time out of the workforce. They are in their career, in the flow, and are looking for a way to maybe take a step out, work more flexibly, or they've taken some time, they want to get back in, or they're active consultants. It's really just that the women are at this sort of very high level at what they do because they've been doing it for 10 plus years. And you hit, as you know, a time in your life where all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, I have little kids, or I'm moving, or my parents are ill, or some things come up in that same time frame. And so providing an opportunity for women to have a little more agency over their life where it's not, I'm home with my kids or I'm working, 100 hours a week, which was a model of work when we started the Second Shift.
Right.
I'm very happy to know that, pat myself on the back, but the world has really changed in the past 10 years where now, obviously, hybrid work, remote work, flexibility is really baked into the nature of the workforce in a way that it wasn't. So there are a lot more options than I think existed when we created the Second Shift, and we created it to give people those options.
Yeah. And then post-COVID, it blew up even more. Or no?
Yeah, no. I mean, COVID at the time was an epic disaster for women, but it turns out that, I'm relentlessly positive. It turns out that the outcome was that the world adapted to a different model of work and a different way of thinking about work. And that is a very positive outcome for women.
I agree. And it's almost like the world caught up with where women needed to be during that phase of their life, 25, 35, 40, where we needed that flexibility in order to be the most productive versions of ourselves inside and outside the home. Would you agree?
The world caught up. It's really hard to change a system.
Yeah.
It's just hard.
Especially one that had nothing to do with women.
And also, it's just they're okay, yeah, it had nothing to do with women when it was created. Then you've got a situation where women are in the workplace and but there's, for a myriad reasons, it becomes difficult at certain points in time. But you're not going to, we would go to conferences after conferences and we would talk to people. And everyone had the same idea that this is what they wanted the world to look like. But it's very hard to turn the Titanic quickly.
Yeah.
So COVID made the Titanic turn quick.
Yeah.
And so in that sense, it was like a forcing mechanism for the world to catch up to where the intention was going. And now I think with like AI and everything that's happening and it's speeding up so quickly and changing so rapidly in terms of like what the job market's even going to look like, that at this point you're just like holding on for dear life and trying to figure it out, But think about it. Like when we got out of college, there were certain industries you would go to, like people went into magazines or media. I went into journalism because I was like, this is a real industry and this is what we're going to do. And they don't even exist anymore.
Yeah. Or the idea of journalism is
it's
different,
just so different
than it was 20, almost 30 years ago. Like it is you can be a journalist and have nothing to do with ABC, NBC.
The way that I thought my career would go, that career path doesn't even exist any longer. So that, if you just think about that when you think about like our kids going off or the way people can create their own careers, it's awesome.
Yeah.
It's much more democratic.
It's much more democratic, and it's so much more, to use that word again, it's so much more flexible. And especially for women who are doing other things in their personal lives that men don't have to do, like have babies, that I just think it lends for so many other opportunities for women. I mean, living in LA, if you go to a yoga class, let's say at 11 a.m. on a Tuesday, it's jam-packed of 30-something-year-old women. And 30 years ago, I would think to myself, does nobody work? Like, is no one working here? And now I'm like, everyone in here is working. It's just their schedule is completely not 9 to 5. And their job description is nothing that, like you said, like you would have thought it would have been in order to be successful 30 years ago or 20 years ago, 10 years ago.
I think about it like, that's always been what LA's felt like to me.
True. And then, LA's a bad example.
But coming from New York, but then now New York is kind of like, we're like, are we living in LA? Just like no one who's going to the 12:30 class or
like,
the
why
11
is there a
12:30
yoga class?
And
who the hell is going to it?
People going to it? Yeah. Because pre-COVID, no one was going to it. It was not a popular, and now everyone's schedules are much more flexible. They're on their own. They're working from home. As long as, naysayers would say that means that, you're less productive. And there's all the ways in which people can write it off as something that's bad. But I see it as a positive. I think if people can get their work done and doesn't seem to be, harming the structure of or the nature of work. I
think it depends on. Well, I think some industries are dependent on collaboration in person and all of that. But I also think that it just is like it's just a fact now. So you can naysay it, but it's not. I don't think it's going to shift back the other way.
I think it also depends because we're talking about what did it shine like we're shining a light on jobs and industries, right? COVID did that too, where it's like essential workers.
Yeah.
People who are in a service industry. You are not going to probably be at that 11 a.m. class. So there's different groups of people and different types of industries and different types of jobs. And in some ways, it's really good to know those things because then you can pick and choose accordingly. Because when I started out in journalism, I guess I never thought about the fact that that meant that I would be working nights and weekends forever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then I had a kid and I was like, oh, shoot, like this job and this life don't really match up.
Yeah.
And what do I do now?
Yeah.
So I created a company to figure out how to do that for myself and for other people.
Yeah.
But it's more transparent.
I agree. And I know you're not a mental health expert, but...
definitely not. But thanks for asking.
But I think you've talked to enough women and through the second shift have seen the mental health ramifications, positive ramifications or repercussions of the change in the way that we work.
I deal with all of the women at the second shift, which is now like thousands and thousands of women.
Right.
Which is great because I get to hear firsthand their stories, what they're looking for, and what comes up in their life that winds up being a stumbling block. And it is really different for lots of people, but there's a similar age range and there's a similar stuckness that happens. And it really depends on the time of life you're in, whether it's like the little kid life or you're older and your kids are going off to college or you're dealing with elderly parents. There's different things that pop up over time and they affect everybody. And in that sense, it's a really, it's normalized to know in a certain way that everyone is dealing with the same thing. And so because of that, you can then create programming into it to say, like, we just created this Shift Forward program that I built out because I had listened to all these conversations and all these women and hearing, I'd have calls after call with people who are, I'm at this point in my life and I don't know what job to take, or I have this job, or I always wanted to do this thing, or I have to leave this job I'm at and I really want to do something different, but I'm afraid, or I got fired and now I feel that I've lost all my confidence. Who's going to hire me? So all of those things that come up. And so hearing it over and over after years, I was like, okay, here's the advice I give people. And I boiled it down to a program that could address all of the main themes of the challenges emotionally, mentally, the blocks that come up, and then help people to move through them.
So what does it mean? So what is the program?
It's broken into 4 weeks and there's 4 sections. It's called the Shift Forward. And it's the first week is really about drilling down into what makes you happy. Like what sparks joy in your life? When are you happy? What is the feedback that you get from other people that you're actually good at? Where do you shine? And it's really shining a mirror inside to say, like, this is what lights me up. And then there's like practices. It's a week-long workshop. And there's some practices that are about getting like still and listening to yourself and really tapping into your intuition and understanding your fears. The whole second week is about fears and overcoming them and seeing, like, where do they come from? Are they even real? Is this really a fear, or is this something like your mom told you and, or some teacher told you in 5th grade that you've been carrying around with you? And then exposing them and realizing that, like, neutralizing them, but also just realizing that that's what they are, and that if you expose it, you can get past it. Then there's a week where you are putting out your goals and you're really thinking through, what do I want? What do I want to do with myself? What do I really, really want? What makes taking all the happiness and if I took all the happiness that I love and I took all the fear out of what I'm afraid would happen, or the judgment or other people's judgment. And then I look at, like, okay, what is the thing that brings me, that I really have always wanted to do? Is there a creative endeavor? Is there a job or a company I've wanted to do? Is there a path that I want to get on? And then the fully actionable steps forward. Because it's great to know all of that, but if you don't actually do anything about it, it's a waste of time. And it's literally like networking, creating a plan for, how to reach out to people, what kind of groups to join, how to update your LinkedIn, your resume. And what I really like is that all of the action steps that are built into each week are things that you should take with you and that you could build into your life, whether it's like coming up with a repetitive task that can open your mind. Because if you're not good at meditating, let's say, you're not going to learn how to meditate in a week. But what you can do is figure out that, like, you go for a really long walk, or some people think really well when they're driving or in the shower or chopping vegetables, something that you're like subconsciously doing where you can like noodle around in your head on things, or positive affirmations, and figuring out a way to call in a group of people to be your, like, hype women.
I like it.
And hype yourself up.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's the things I tell people to do all the time, and just like smushed it all together. And
you formalized it.
I made it a plan. I codified it, and I was like, here you go. Do that. If you do this, you're going to, at the end of this, at least you will know so much more about yourself. You will know what you're doing to self-sabotage. Like, for example, there's a few things that like stand out. But for example, I think that people often ask for advice from the wrong people.
Why? Why do you think
because
people do that?
Because they want an answer that is confirmation bias.
So what does that mean in reality? Like you ask your good friend,
if you have a coworker or a friend who is going to give you an answer that you want to hear, that's going to stop you from doing the thing that you want to do.
And you think subconsciously we pick them out to ask that question?
I do. I think you find the people that are going to, if I wanted to do something, I would ask you, and you'd be like, yes, do it. Absolutely.
Well, I think I'm pretty realistic when we've had these conversations.
Yeah, but you're very positive.
I'm very positive. I'm not negative, but if you came to me with a crazy thing.
But I know who in my life are going to be negative. I know who they are. I know who's going to tell me an idea is crazy and don't do it.
But okay, so the one thing I would say is that I don't think positive and negative is necessary. I think you can be very positive when you say to someone, a person you can really trust and trust you. Like, I think that sounds really interesting, but I think you're like going off topic, or I think that's not the right place for you.
Absolutely.
Would I do that, or I wouldn't do that for you?
No, you would, but I think you would.
Maybe I wouldn't.
You would, but you're always.
I don't know.
But I don't know. Maybe I only bring you the good ideas. I'm not sure.
I don't know.
But I think that's a form of self-sabotage, that people aren't paying attention to their patterns. If you're not thinking about who you're talking to or why you're talking to that person, you can talk to your coworkers who are just as miserable as you are.
Right.
And they're going to tell you not to do the thing because they're
coming from their own styles, and it's making them be like, well, I'm not going to do that, so I don't want you to do it either.
Really just thinking those steps through. And so a lot of times what I'll do is I take calls with people because I'm just a person they don't know.
Yeah. And you're a sponge.
And I'm like, tell me what it is give me the whole story, and then I'm going to hear it. And I'm going to like repeat it back to you so you understand what you're saying. And then I'm going to give you advice because I don't even know you. So I can just tell you what you're saying you want, even if you don't know that that's what you're saying.
Yeah.
And I think that comes from journalism, because if you spend a lot of time hearing what people's stories, you're able to distill it. Mm-hmm. And then I'll be like, oh no, this is what you're actually saying you want, but you're just getting, all these other things are getting in the way of what you're actually saying.
And when you give someone that breakdown, how do they normally react?
Really positively.
Really?
Yeah. Because I don't ever say it in a bad way. I'll always say it in a really nice way, but I'll say
nice way. Your idea sucks and you should not do that.
Well, let's say somebody comes to me and is like, I really want to leave my job, and gives me the whole backstory, and I moved and I have the kid and I'm here, but I want this job and I want it to be like this, and I'm looking at jobs in New York City and other places. And I'm like, but you've just told me that you moved to this place that you want to be more involved in your kid's life. So clearly you're not going to be able to commute every day an hour and a half. Like that's a self-sabotaging thing to do.
Yeah.
What you need to do is completely change the job search that you're looking at and do it this way.
Yeah.
And like in an hour in an hour conversation, I can do that because I'm hearing what you're saying and how it's hard. It's really hard for people to know themselves.
And I also think often people say things that they think they should be doing, or think they should say, or think think should be the path, when it actually, like in this example you just gave, someone might say, I really want to spend more time with my kids, and so we're moving, but I'm going to look for a job in another city and commute, an hour and a half away. Like, which is the part that is true or not? That they actually want to like be closer to home and not be in the car for 3 hours a day? Or they actually really don't want to spend that much more time with their kids and they want that commute. I think helping someone figure that out, in my opinion, is a big deal. It's the shining
of the light. It's like, I'm going to mirror back what you're saying and just push you on it a little bit. I'm not a career coach. I'm not a therapist, but I can listen to you and I can help you figure out what to do.
I think you are kind of a career coach.
Well, but I'm an oldest daughter. I'm a really big family, so I'm just bossy.
That's true. That is absolutely true.
I'm just going to tell you exactly what to do and how to optimize your life and exactly what your life plan should be. You don't have to listen to me, but if you do, your life's going to be 1 billion times better. If you don't, that's your own fault.
I mean, you're definitely my friend who I bounce ideas off of, and you're like, that's a terrible idea. Terrible. I don't think you'll enjoy that. And here are the reasons why.
I think you have to be, but I do it nicely.
You do with a smile on your face, a pretty smile on your face, put a stern look in your eye. You're like, no.
Yeah, that's bad.
To me, part of the second shift is career coaching. And it is, I don't even know what a career coach means.
Well, there's official career coaches who go through a program.
Yes, you don't have a certification for it. But I think that
I'm just have wear tested.
You're wear tested. Yes, you're the oldest daughter of a big family, and also just your life experience. And I assume being involved in so many women's decision-making processes when they're looking for, like you've said, a new job, a new, flexible workouts, whatever it is. I think you've heard enough that you can give really good career advice.
It all comes down to the same things. People women, not people, I deal in women, lack confidence.
Mm-hmm.
They are afraid.
Mm-hmm.
They want to take a risk, but that comes back to fear.
Mm-hmm.
And they're carrying around so much self-judgment and the external judgment of others.
Yeah.
That hold them back. That is honestly what it comes down to. And there's a huge amount of desire to feel important and desire to feel meaning in your life and desire to feel meaning outside of maybe your home, meaning from financially, being able to be financially independent and have financial freedom is so important because it does boost your self-esteem.
Yeah, it does. It's very empowering.
It's empowering. And so I think everything really comes down to those things. It's like a confidence thing, it's a judgment thing, and it's a fear thing.
Yeah.
And the most powerful women, you would die if you heard some of these women who are I'm the CEO of this company. I just left my job a month ago. Now I have no identity and I don't know who I am and no one's ever going to hire me. What is it I can do? And you're like,
a lot of things.
I think you're going to be fine.
It's not that shocking to me because the overlap of what I do from a health, wellness, preventive care point of view and platform and what you do is actually it overlaps a lot. So for me, the hardest hurdle is to help empower women. And that's sort of a blown up term right now, but in a very real sense of you need to understand who you are, what your body is, what your body's doing physically, mentally, emotionally, get in deep touch with that so that you can be in control of your health and wellness. And the biggest obstacles that I come across with women are exactly the same, which is huge, just fear of the unknown or fear of the known even more than the unknown. I don't want to know that because then I might have to do something about it or make a decision that could be easy or very difficult. And confidence to look in the mirror, confidence to feel yourself, confidence to tell someone when something's off or wrong. That is a huge block for women in taking care of themselves. They're embarrassed to, everything from have a cyst or a growth or something feels weird or I'm bleeding at different times or I have a pain. And I think a lot of that comes from we're not supposed to,
we were told that we're told just suffer through it.
Suffer through it. You'll be fine. And why are you bothering someone? Or why are you taking time out of your day when you should be doing something else to hunt down the right doctor? And when the doctor tells you it's nothing, that person has usually a male, has a degree on their wall. That's the authority, not you. You don't know better than that guy. And so I think it's the same things. And it's just it's a woman issue. And I think it's the most important issue is to help women get to that point of empowerment.
I think the other one would be accommodating.
Yeah.
Being so accommodating.
Yeah.
Not wanting to ruffle feathers or look to that you're bitchy or that you're pushy. And so women are so accommodating and have such poor boundaries. Not all, I'm generalizing, but that comes up with medical stuff, right? If you're sitting there in a doctor's office and you're intimidated or you're scared or you're like, I don't know, this person knows more. You're going to accommodate to what they're saying 100%. Instead of pushing back.
I found
where
that
you're asked to take on the task of running some group at work, and you're like, I have all these other things. I'm going to accommodate to it.
Yeah.
Because that's what we do.
That's what we do. And the interesting thing I found is that women, at least in my world, women are so much more likely to discuss very intimate things in a group of women, in a group of small women, never alone with their doctor. And rarely, my guess is like with their boss or the decision-making person in the room. It's too much. I don't want to say it. Like I'm wasting their time. But when you're in a group of women, most of the times, not necessarily like your best friends, just in this like safe group. I mean, I have heard women say the most intimate details about their bodily functions, what their sexual life is like. I mean, I was in a group of women all over the age of 72. And one of the women was like, well, my husband died 10 years ago and I am very sexually active. And I don't want to talk to my doctor about it because I'm, afraid of what he's going to think about me. And I was like, well, what do you want to talk to him about? And she's like, well, I'm scared of STDs. Like, I mean, all these things. And I was like, and you're telling this group of strangers, like you're talking about this group of other women you don't know that well with no shame and like not shy at all, but alone in the room with the doctor, the person that you should be talking to this about so you can have some sort of protection. She wouldn't do it.
That's why I love women. That's why I love women. I mean, we'll sit there and it's like, I just hosted this dinner at my house the other night for this women's group I'm in, and they send 8 random women that you don't know who are part of the group over to your dinner. And you have a topic of conversation. Our topic was life after 40, and they provide the food and all the things, and you sit around with these hand-selected strangers who are in your house. And I was like, I wonder how fast this conversation goes to lasers. Sex, divorce, lasers. I love your dress. I need a new job. And it's like, we are so able to just like throw it all out there when it's a safe space among ourselves.
But interestingly, that safe space is often not even like with your bestest friends. No. It's usually with women that somehow there's a connection. And they're often strangers. I think may have something to do with like the little bit of anonymity you have in that group, but the safety of their women, we're all the same age.
They're not going to judge you when you don't do the thing that your best friend told you to do. Or when you tell them the thing that you don't want them to know about your spouse because they're going to remember it and carry it forward.
Yeah.
These are just people that you can talk to.
Yeah. And we get down and dirty, like the things that you start saying, you're like, and you hear them come out of your mouth, you're like, I can't believe I just told that woman that. Like, that's disgusting. But they were looking at you, answering you, saying, I know, it's so gross. I have the same thing. And then you feel like validated. I don't know. You feel like you're normal. Something like that.
I think you feel connection.
Yeah. Yeah.
And ultimately, that connection is the thing that women are in particular are really good at.
Yeah.
It's finding the places to connect with each other.
It's true. It's true.
That's why we lived in villages and took care of each other's kids. And, that's baked into like the DNA of being our gender.
Yeah. It's kind of the shared experience of what our bodies go through and the changes and the sort of difficulties you have going through all those changes. And I think that's just something only women can connect to with each other. That's different than men. I mean, men don't have those same things.
I live in Barbie world. I don't know. My entire life is like,
but you
just a happy place. All women. We just like all help each other all the time.
Although women can be the most cutthroat with each other.
Absolutely. And you have to know that. So you can, you can work around it.
I think
everyone's gone through 7th grade. Anyone who's gone through 7th grade and has been a 7th grade girl knows what at the heart is lying like the vipers underneath. And you just have to get through
the like nails that come out and
know
like
it about each other.
Dig in. I agree. I mean, I actually think a moment has passed where it has gotten less so. I think the movement of women helping women, but I do think underneath it, there's only so many spots at the top. There's only so many spots in this room or so many spots in this boardroom or board table or whatever it is, that women still are mostly, competing heavily against each other for the lesser open spots.
I hope that's changed. And what I see in my work life is, and again, I live in a I work at a company that's built for women. I work with only women, and our whole sort of ecosystem are all people who are in women.
Yeah.
Somebody asked me the other day, what do you do? I'm like, I'm in the women's empowerment space. I mean, it sounds like such a ridiculous thing to say, but it kind of am. So
you are
in the ecosystem. It's like, the founders and the funders and the people who are entrepreneurs or the women who work. But they're all the same. It's been so supportive.
That's amazing.
And helpful to each other and willing to lift and support each other, promote each other. I have found it to be a wildly comfortable and an empowering place to work in.
Yeah. What's been your best, if you have a couple?
But again, I don't work in finance.
Yeah.
I'm not working at a high-powered law firm where maybe it's a little more of a cutthroat demographic.
Yeah.
This feels like we're all in it for the same purpose.
Yeah.
And ultimately that purpose is to do good in the world and to help each other.
Yeah. What has been one of a few of your just biggest, wins that where you feel great and the client feels great? And are there any little tidbits or stories where it's just, you've seen someone all the way through?
Yeah, we've had so many. I mean, the fact that we have been creating wealth for women so that they can, every job, I'm like, wow, that woman just made this much money through us. That's such a great feeling to know that that we're giving them employment and that helping them to reach their dreams. For me, it's more the emotional side of it on the women's side. I'm also happy the clients are happy as well. A lot of times we'll have a client who'll come to us who wants to hire somebody and maybe they don't want to, they want to test it out and see how that relationship goes. And they'll hire them for a project. And then that project will last for years. And they'll have this ongoing relationship. Or it'll flip into a full-time job. And then that person will be hired as a full-time employee. And then everyone's winning because you've now gotten the second shift's winning, the client's winning, the woman who's employed is winning. And it's just such a great thing to see when it works.
Yeah.
My favorite thing is when it's a client that we haven't gone out to get or don't know who just shows up. Some company that just showed up and we're like, oh, okay, how did you hear about us? Or, and they're like, oh, I read about it, or somebody told me, or I used to work at this place and I knew this girl and she told me. And so and you're like, oh, it's that network effect that really in action. And
that's amazing.
That's very cool.
That is a cool feeling. I was saying it the other day with one of our big events, and the first few years I knew everybody there. It's a 5K that we do. And now I don't know anybody. It's so all great. People I don't know. Yeah. And it's this amazing
taken on a life of its own.
It's a life of its own. I mean, I remember having this discussion with one of my sisters who was I don't know, saying they want to do more of this. I said, it's not about us anymore. It's about the cause and it's about the purpose. And this isn't about me. It's literally not about me and my giant group of people I know in this city. Those people stopped coming. They paid their dues. They came because they felt they needed to. These are people who are know about it and for the right reasons. It's kind of an amazing feeling. I mean, it makes you feel successful.
Absolutely. That you've put something out in the world that can live on its own.
Yeah.
That isn't tied to you or your mom.
Yeah.
It's tied to
why you did it.
Yeah. The purpose of the reason. Yeah. The purpose of what you did it for.
Yeah.
And that's what's the resonant piece of it, and it will live on.
And you feel when that happens, you feel when that turn happens. And it's pretty cool. It is.
You created a brand that's basically built on your mom.
Yeah.
And probably those people have no idea who your mom was.
Most don't.
Or they just know it as this 5K that's for women's cancer.
Totally. And other things. And it's the name. And the brand, and my mom is the sort of the middle ethos of it, because it's, this, a lot of her values that have gone on for now 25 plus years. But you have no idea who this person is or if this was even a real person. It's okay. And I was never not okay with that. Some people have a really hard time with that.
Really?
Yeah. And I think that's okay too. But I think that's how you turn the corner to be, one, have longevity and success, to success is to let that live on its own, like become its own living organism, like you said.
That's so cool.
It is cool. Well, you've done it too. It's pretty neat.
But yours, I was there. I remember when your mom passed.
You were there.
And so and then you were like, I'm going to do this thing and create this
and you didn't
foundation.
Say no, Amy, you shouldn't.
I didn't. I mean,
we were really young.
We were but I thought you were, at the time, I thought you were like crazy. I was like, who even knows how to do this? You don't know how to do this.
I didn't. I just sort of did it. But I think there's something interesting too, which I've thought about a lot when I think about your business, which is that there's so many different paths a woman can go down for her career. And obviously there's different motivators. And if you financially depends where you are in your life, of course. But I was hell-bent on when my kids were born, and I had kids young, that I was going to be a huge part of their life because I have this thing, my mom died when I was young, and there's something in the back of my head, like, God forbid, if I get sick and die, like, I don't want to miss out on anything. And so I built this foundation, which I consider like a business and a career for myself that gave me tons of flexibility. And then, like you were saying before, like time shifts and change a lot for a lot of women, when their family grows and changes. When my kids got older, and I have older kids now, adults, 2 of them, I can do so much more. And in some ways, it's been incredibly good timing for myself because it wasn't until my 40s, even mid 40s, where I really felt like 100% comfortable with what I'm good at, what I'm not good at, what I want to do, what I know. And then I could really lean into all the other sort of verticals, if you may, about what can make this career like even more fulfilling. And that was really scary because at 20 something, who doesn't have like a normal job where you like have someone paying you every week or whatever, that was definitely scary. But I knew that was my path. But that is 25 years ago, that was like very abnormal, which is why you thought I was crazy.
No, I thought it was amazing. I just was like, wow, you're really going to do this thing. That seems huge. And none of us know how to do it. I'm just going to go get this job. But it's interesting when you're early in your career, right? You look down at what it's going to like, quote unquote, be like,
mm-hmm.
right? And you're like, and this is going to happen. And here's the goal. And I know that women do this a lot.
Yeah.
I did this. Like, here's this goal and here's what I want it to look like and here's how it's going to go. And then you're actually in it and it's totally different than you thought it was going to be. But you've created this idea of what you want it to look and feel like. And it's very hard to divert in some ways from that course.
Very hard to let that go.
To let it go. And sometimes it didn't come from you. Mm-hmm. It came from somebody else where, that is a pressure that was put on and you have to, it's like a reckoning happens. Mm-hmm. Either you've changed, right? You've grown, you've matured, your kids are in a different place, your life changes, and you have to be able to go with that flow of where your career journey takes you. And when you're 20, like I honestly thought, and then you're like 50 and your kids go to college and then you're just done. And then what happens at the end of that? I have no idea what happens at the end of that thing. And then you wake up one day and you're like, okay, so I'm at that place where kids are going to be off. And I guess I thought that's where you tied the bow and the story was over.
No, and to my point, I feel
all
like
of a sudden we're like
when
here,
it's like,
and you're like,
you feel
what's the next chapter?
Exactly. And we feel the most almost ready and excited for that.
Did we think we were going to like move and just play golf all day? I don't know what I thought. I think I thought like that was the end of the storyline, and then you're in this next chapter, and this next chapter is like
retirement, whatever that means.
But now that I'm actually in that next phase, I'm like, oh no, there's a lot of time, and we're young.
Yeah, and we're younger than our moms were at this age.
I guess maybe that's what it is.
I think it's that. I think that in a lot of ways we're younger. We dress younger, like we're less formal, but also we are.
Like, what are we doing? We're gonna like.
you just
play golf all day?
No
one's
bored.
retiring.
No, and you've lived a dynamic life. And so the idea that you would slow down in middle age seems crazy, when I do feel like now's the time where you feel so just like comfortable and good in your skin and totally powerful. I mean, I gave a speech the other night and I was like, I'm 48 years old. I've never felt more powerful and empowered and strong and physically, mentally, emotionally fit. And there's no way I would have said that 10 years ago out loud, because it would have been a lie in front of a couple hundred people. But it's the truth. And I think because you have to live in order to get that way. And I think the shame part you were talking about earlier is also a really important topic, because I think if you give up things for your partner or you give up things for your kids, I don't think there's any shame in that. I think it's a choice. So if you're an active participant in that choice, that's okay too. And then you have to figure out, well, how do I keep momentum going for myself if we're like zig and zagging through life. And I think that's also life, and, going where the wind blows you and figuring it out and making it really work is very active and has to be a very active decision-making process for women, as opposed to like being accommodating.
Did you ever listen to the Nora Ephron commencement speech that she gave in like the 90s at Wellesley?
I mean, a really long time ago.
I'm going to send it to you.
Because I think my mom was obsessed with it.
Yeah, I was obsessed with it. But one of the things I think that is so powerful in that commencement speech, she talks about how identity changes so much over time.
Mm-hmm.
And how if you were to describe yourself in 3 words, it would change so much over the course of different periods of your age and life. And particularly for women who can adapt, who are adaptable, who move through phases, whether it's you're working or you're a mother or you're a spouse or you're a daughter. Our identities are much more fluid in a certain way. Mm-hmm. And because of that, there's so much ability to, if you think about that as a positive, there's so much ability to change who you are, start something new, do something different than you did. And when we go back to the beginning of the conversation, we live in a world in which that's an infinite possibility.
Yeah.
When I started out in TV, none of the things in this studio were possible.
No.
I carried a backpack with a giant camera, and I had cords and huge batteries, and I carried it around in my tripod. And now I film all of my videos, TikToks, things on my phone.
Yeah.
And it's that's mind-blowing.
Mind-blowing.
And that's in 20 years that happened.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden we're in a world in which, you can put your outfit on TV or not on TV. You can film your outfit, put it out there and create a complete career out of just doing outfit of the days.
Yeah.
That's a real thing that people do. I'm just saying that there's so much possibility.
Yeah.
And when I was younger, I'm not sure I thought that I would feel this way at this age, and that I would.
You couldn't have known. I mean, you just can't know.
Yeah, it's you can't know.
And if you tried to know, I think you would go back into that, what you were talking about earlier, fall back and you'd go into the trap of, this is where I'll be, this is what I will have accomplished.
Control of it.
Yeah.
And I say this to the women who I talk to who are younger, because it's like when you have a baby, right? And you think this is the be all and end all of life. And, you're so in that moment. And then one day your baby goes to college or starts school, and you're all of a sudden your life changes, and people make decisions based on a moment in time, not necessarily thinking about a bigger picture.
Yeah.
And I've been fortunate because my business partner, Gina, is a few years older and has older kids. So I've watched her move through the different phases. Mm-hmm. So it was paying attention and seeing that it was a little bit of a cautionary tale, where my kids were really little and it was so overwhelming. And then seeing that you build in space in your life. And then, now having two teenagers where I feel in some ways like it's doing the opposite.
Yeah.
Where like I have to like close ranks a little bit and I need to be around and home and like parent in a really different way.
Yeah.
But I also know that that's 6 years.
Yeah.
And I know how fast 6 years goes.
Yeah. I remember, yes.
And you can't make decisions that are long lasting for a short period of time.
No.
It goes so fast.
It goes so fast. I was talking to a young woman the other day who has little kids. And she's like, it's just so much. I'm so excited. She doesn't say I'm so excited. She's like, I can't imagine what it'll be like when they're older and I don't have to parent as much. And I was like, yeah, bigger kids, bigger problems and bigger issues. It's just different. You don't have to walk around with a bag full of crap all the time with like, all the stuff. But if you want to be an active parent, you're like your presence and the way you are, it doesn't go away. It just changes. And so you can change and your life can change as those life changes happen, I suppose.
Yeah. Now I'm watching Gina, both of her kids, one just graduated from college and one's going to college. And now has no one home. And she told me I'm never allowed to say empty nester because it makes her crazy and cry immediately. But she's now wrestling with that, like, okay, well, I'm young and now they're both gone.
I mean, we have the conversation.
Done my job.
Yeah, and all the time in our house because I have a son who's going to graduate from college, a son who's going to college, and then a younger one going into high school. But once they go into high school, like, you don't see them as much. Like, actively, you're not like, and their days are longer outside the house. We were having this conversation the other day about like who's the most influential in your life during different times of your life. How much time you spend with your parents when you're little and then your friends and your teachers and whatnot. And my husband was saying, like, your day is going to be long, Amy. Like, once it's just one kid who's in high school in the house, like your active time with a child is much shorter during the day than it ever has been. Like, instead of school from, when it started, it was like 2 hours. Now it'll be 8 to 6 because, they have stuff after school. And it's, I've always filled my day. I haven't had a problem with that. But there's a whole nother end to the day, there's a whole nother like hours stacked on that. And I'm at the point, like we said, where you want to be doing something during that time. Like, I want to be actively figuring out how to take whatever I'm doing to the next level. So with you in the second shift, how are you thinking about that? Like, what is the next phase in a way that like feels like you're taking it or yourself or whatever you do after the second shift, if it isn't forever, to sort of the next level where you will feel fulfilled at this stage in your life?
I am currently very happy with what I'm doing. I think it ultimately there's times where it feels like a real slog.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that any job does. And especially, everyone really thinks that like starting a business is super fun, but then you like,
it's a lot.
You're 8 years in and you're like, oh my God, I'm still doing this thing. I can't talk about this anymore.
Yeah.
And I've seen so much change, like we talked about earlier, that it's great because I can see that there's been an impact. But at the same time, I'm like, okay, I've been talking about this for so long.
Yeah.
Like, this is like not boring, but getting old for me. So I try to keep it fresh and just come up with new things that, whether it was the Shift Forward program, I just started doing affiliate links and putting in clothes. Because I was like, we sit at that dinner that we're talking about. And what are we talking about? Like, what to wear to work. Oh, I love your dress. And there's so many people who have a hard time dressing in their midlife because they're not really sure what works. You don't want to be
that's why those
too
businesses
young.
have come along
trendy.
and are doing well. Yeah, that like send you all your like outfits in a box,
Yeah.
Like that's
and
like
I think
people need other people
When
to help.
I need to zone out and chill out, I'm a big internet shopper. And I'm also a big internet shopper for other people where I'll like constantly send my sister things like, buy this is cute. And, and so I was like, I'm just going to do that. And literally one day, I started a podcast 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And I just was like, you got to keep it fresh. You got to keep it moving and keep it fresh and finding new ways to reach people and to get a message across to a bigger and different audience. It stays the same, but doing something that feels really purposeful and really has a mission and working with women, I think that will never change.
Yeah.
I love doing that. And I love doing all the content, the community stuff. coming up with different fun ideas of things that we can do. It keeps me going. But you have to create that yourself, because otherwise it just gets
no one's going to live
stale.
life for you. No, you have to do it yourself. I heard a speech last year or 2 years ago, and it was wonderful. And the end piece of it was at that time the U.S. Surgeon General was speaking, and I got to hear him, and he's a really cool guy, and he was saying basically that the key to joy and happiness in your life is having purpose. If you don't find purpose, and no one's going to find it for you, it's hard to find real joy. And I think if you find purpose in what you're doing, no matter what it is, if it's being a parent, if it's working, whatever it is, and then you continually build on it, this is my take, and then you continually build on it, like you will live a long, happy, and healthy life. And to me, that's like part of the keys to just...
Yeah. Have you ever read that Viktor Frankl book?
Parts of it. I haven't read the whole thing.
Search for the Meaning of Life.
Yeah.
I read it in college, and then I just reread it the other day. I feel like he's having a little bit of a renaissance. But it's really about that ultimately you can withstand anything.
Yeah.
If you really understand that your life is about finding meaning and your purpose and figuring out what that is, whether it's work or it's love or it's relationships, friendships, whatever it is that gives you particularly that feeling that you can overcome anything because you're working on this thing, and you own your own business or you're doing something that it takes a long time.
Yeah.
And if you don't feel connected to the meaning of what you're doing, it's going to be a torturous time.
Correct. It'll be work.
Yeah.
In whatever that means. But
and it doesn't have to be work, right? Work doesn't have to be the place where you get the meaning in your life.
No, definitely not.
You could have a job, and the meaning of your life could be from the personal relationships, from love, and then that's.
But if you don't have purpose in that, then it's just a working. On. Yes, exactly.
So whatever the thing is that you're finding, everything else is like the gravy.
Yeah, I agree with that. All right. Well, that's the advice. That's the like ending advice. Find purpose in your life. And as women, we change, our bodies change inside and out as we grow. We have multiple stages upon multiple stages of our life. And I think finding purpose and finding confidence, like you said, and being, compassionate to yourself and listening to ourselves, to me, that's like, those are the takeaways.
I agree. I think that the purpose can also change over time.
Absolutely. Because we change.
We change, and your life is going to change. And so being able to be adaptable to of where you're finding that meaning at different points in time, and recognizing that that's where you are, leaning into the thing that's bringing meaning to you heavily, and then not judging yourself for the other things that maybe you aren't leaning into in that moment.
Yeah.
And knowing that, okay, in the next chapter, maybe that's where I'll put the attention to the other thing. You can't be all the things. You can't be getting meaning everywhere, because then you're just spread too thin. So, maybe it's work, maybe it's relationships, maybe it's religion, whatever it is that at that point is feeling that that's where you want to put the energy, and that you're feeling fulfilled in your soul from, just go with it. And don't second guess yourself, because we just do that too much.
Yeah, women do that too much.
Yeah, that's where all the fears and the doubts and the things come in. So just get rid of them.
Yeah, clear the plate.
Yeah.
I love it. Thanks, Jenny.
I love you, Abe.
I love you,
this
Jenny.
Is so fun. Because we have to end. I mean, we can sit here and talk forever.
We could go keep talking while we shop.
Let's talk about the meaning of life.
Yes, while we're trying on t-shirts.
While we get sweaters.
Thank you.
That's why I love you.
That's why I love you too. Thank you.